Hello, I'm Ernestine Jones, host of Gospel Grace at Daybreak. I'm here today with CareFirst and many of the Baltimore area's most trusted voices to tell it like it is about COVID-19 and the vaccines. It is a long-held tradition in the Black community to open our gatherings with reverence, and this afternoon is no exception. We're proud to honor the tradition today and to bear witness to the lives lost from our community to COVID-19 in the past year, which we will do soon. But first, in response to our need to gain access to the valuable information we will share today, CareFirst, BlueCross, BlueShield stepped up to make this broadcast possible. Let's hear a word from them now.
Welcome. My name is Maria Harris Tilden, and I'm the Executive Vice President of Public Policy and Government Affairs at CareFirst, BlueCross, BlueShield, and I'm delighted to be here today among this esteemed group of individuals. I'd like to start by extending my thanks to the Afro, WEAA, Mayor Brandon Scott, New Psalmist Baptist Church, as well as the Baltimore County Health Department, NAACP, University of Maryland Medical System, Johns Hopkins, Morgan State University, and the many others for their role in creating this important forum during this critical moment in time. As a lifelong Baltimore resident, I can truly think of no better group of individuals to deliver these important messages around COVID-19 and vaccines. As I am sure many of you can relate, I'm looking forward to better days ahead, and I'm hopeful that someday soon it'll be safe to gather with family and friends and have an opportunity to celebrate life's joyous moments, both big and small. While we are finally beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel, it's critical that we not let up, not just yet. In order to get to what I'm sure will be a very new normal, it's critical that each of us remain vigilant, continue to wear our mask and social distance, and most importantly, get the vaccine when we are eligible and able. Now more than ever, our community health depends on each and every one of us stepping up and getting vaccinated when we can, because the best way for all of us to get better is to do it together. As a neighbor and leading employer in the Baltimore metro area, CareFirst has been laser focused on doing its part, supporting our employees, members, partners, and communities impacted by the COVID-19 virus and planning for what comes next. Now, as COVID vaccines are being rolled out, there's a clear opportunity for all of us to step up, and move forward together so we may reach the target vaccination rates needed to turn this pandemic around. Earlier this month, CareFirst launched its Better Together campaign, a public health campaign with a very simple goal: doing what we can to ensure that we have enough people vaccinated so we can put this pandemic behind us. We're asking our employees and community partners to take a pledge to get the vaccine when they're eligible. I hope that each and every one here finds a way to encourage our own networks to do the same for you, for your family, and our community. Thank you so much for doing your part.
As of February 23, 2021, of more than 381,000 documented cases in the state of Maryland, almost 51,000 cases are from Baltimore County. We have more than 40,000 cases in Baltimore City. In Anne Arundel County, there are more than 35,000 cases, and Howard County is approaching 16,000 documented cases. In the state of Maryland, COVID-19 is now the third leading cause of death. COVID-19 has taken a deadly toll on the people of Baltimore County, Baltimore City, Anne Arundel County, and Howard County. Here are some of the stark statistics that tell it like it is and demonstrates why. We all need to take this pandemic serious and do our part to stop the spread. If we look at how these documented COVID-19 cases break down by race and ethnicity in the state of Maryland, we see that African Americans represent more than 109,000 documented cases. About 8,600 cases were Asian people. Close to 132,000 white people were documented with the coronavirus, and Hispanic people accounted for more than 61,000 cases. And looking at the COVID-19 death rate in Maryland by race and ethnicity, the statistics show that Asians accounted for 265 deaths. White people have experienced 3,933 deaths, and 704 Hispanic people have died from COVID-19. And while only 30% of Maryland's population, African Americans have suffered 2,643 deaths.
Oh, my friends, about 12 months ago or so, we first heard the rumblings of a virus coming out of China that was closing down a province there and had the potential to even stretch further than Wuhan province. Little did we know that that virus would move past Wuhan, move out of China, and make its way across the world, and especially into the towns and cities, villages, communities, and homes where people we loved live. These last 12 months have taken us to a place that we almost could not imagine. We've seen more death than we ever thought we would see. Nearly 500,000 people dead in such a short period of time. Our hearts are made to bleed. Some of us have not grieved, some of us have not been able to voice the pain. But I invite you now into a moment of silence when you can feel the grief and express the pain. Some may be crying now, some may be weeping, because the hurt is real. Parents that had to go to work, relatives that were infected and you still don't know how, but loss is real. Thanks be unto God now that there is a vaccine in this, the second year of this crisis. Prayerfully, many will take the vaccine and we will not see the same march to the cemeteries and crematories that we saw in the last 12 months. And our lives can begin to be put back together. This vaccine has real potential, and the prayer is that we will see that potential actualized in all of our community. From grandmamas to children, persons will be inoculated against this dreaded disease. We have suffered loss, but we're banding together as community now. We're going to be coming out from this shelter in place, and we're going to live together and be whole together. Our thanks to our friends at CareFirst who bring us together today, that we might have this reflective moment and we might believe and understand what's possible going forward. Let the tears come. Let the hurt rise. Because there is a God who rules above with a hand of power and a heart of love. And he will be with you, even as he has been with you each month of this crisis. He didn't bring you this far to leave you now. There is a day coming, and there is a land where the clouds roll away. I believe God for victory. I believe him for victory. So many are gone, but God is giving us the strength to hold on.
I'm Marco Merrick, the founding director of the Community Concert Choir of Baltimore, Incorporated. The choir itself is bigger than music. It's bigger than singing. So it's very relational as we seek to spread the ministry and the music. And not being able to come together now for more than a year has had its impact on all of us. And it's impacted not just the members of the choir, but the constituents, the supporters, and the many people who come to the concerts. While we certainly are people of a spiritual set and we have a common thread of our faith tradition, whatever that is, it does not preclude us from the reality of having depression or having feelings of loneliness or even some feelings of hopelessness, because we certainly thought when the pandemic came about a year ago that I remember when I was informed that I would be working remotely, that it might be for a few weeks. Who knew? And then, of course, I knew pretty soon that this was going to carry over throughout the year, but now it looks like it may be another year before an aggregation as large as a community concert choir could actually come together again. We have had the sad occasion of losing some choir members to COVID. So we have found a new norm that, for me, I still say it's not normal at all. We've just tried to live with it and modify our ways and our thinkings and our efforts to make sure individuals know that we really do care. Well, knowing that the vaccine was certainly in the hopper, and that's, trying to be light-minded about it, but I was thrilled, as a matter of fact, to know actually that someone who had matriculated here at UMBC, of course, Ms. Corbett, Dr. Corbett, was on the front lines with the National Institutes of Health to discover, to research, and enable that vaccine, which has come about. And certainly I was proud of her and elated and thankful, grateful to know that there was a vaccine, and these trials were actually coming to some conclusion that the efficacy would be in such a way that it would help us. And certainly I have been fortunate enough to have had the vaccine. My mother, who resides with me, who is an elder, has had the vaccine, and we have encouraged others. I would say this is a new day, this is a new opportunity, and it's a time for us to be hopeful and optimistic. I also would hazard the hunch of trying the vaccine and it not being effective than not having had it at all and lose my life, or perhaps cause someone I love to lose their life.
Hello, everyone. I am Bishop Guy Robinson. I serve as the pastor of the Tabernacle of the Lord Church in Southwest Baltimore. I'm also blessed to serve as the Maryland State Episcopal leader for the Full Gospel Baptist Church Fellowship International. You know, this COVID-19 pandemic has certainly affected us in many ways, medically, of course, physically, emotionally, psychologically, and economically. And yet it is so important that we hold on to hope and that we continue to act from that place of hope. Indeed, we found that funerals have been changed psychologically, the way we process loss and grief. Now, patterns of coping and ways of supporting each other have been modified in this season. The way we exercise the ministry of presence, of being there for each other through worshipful celebrations of life and serving repast meals and visiting the sick and bereaved. And essentially, this is who we are, particularly as people of faith and what we do. And yet in everything we give thanks. And it's so important that we find the things for which to give thanks just to help us cope. Thankful for the technology. The last time there was a pandemic in 1918 or so, we did not have the advantages of being able to be connected through technological means like this. And so while it is not quite that to which we aspire, it is still something to be thankful for. And gratitude is a natural antidepressant. So I would encourage persons to remain mindful of things for which we can be thankful. In terms of community, that we continue to check on each other, stay connected. Isolation is detrimental to our psychological health. So it's so important that we maintain that sense of community and check on each other. The Tabernacle is blessed and counted in honor to serve with so many other institutions and Maryland Food Bank and others in offering food giveaways and helping to be there for each other, because it's so important that we stay together in times like these.
Yeah, listen, we know that COVID-19 has been ravaging our community. In particular, our Black and brown communities have been deeply impacted. And we don't want to lose any more people to COVID. We've lost over 700 people in Baltimore to COVID-19. And the best way for us to begin to fight back on this disease that's been ravaging our community is for folks to get vaccinated. We understand that there's some hesitancy for some folks, but we want to let them know that this is different. We will acknowledge the things that have happened in the past in our community with the health and when they're doing testing, but this time we were a part of the clinical trials. We were involved in this, in the creation of this. This vaccine was partly created through a Black woman who went to UMBC right here in our community. And it's important for us to know that what we are doing is not just about protecting you, it's about protecting your loved ones, the people you work with, the people that you interact with, the people that you hold near and dear to your heart. That's why we need everyone to get vaccinated as soon as they can, because we have to fight COVID. If we want to get back to having AFRAM, if we want to get back to having Artscape, if we want to get back to just going out on Drew Hill Park on a Sunday or even eating crabs on the deck with our family, then we need to fight COVID by getting everyone vaccinated as quickly as possible. There has been no group of people that have been impacted by the mortality of COVID than our older adults, which is why we need to get them vaccinated, but with that we also need to get vaccinated to protect them, but also to continue to support them, helping them by going to the grocery store for them, helping them by bringing them the resources that they need, the pharmacy that they need, and making sure that we're doing everything. Don't go and visit your mom or your grandmother, right? Don't do that. Do it in a socially distanced way whenever possible. It's hard. Talk to them on the phone. It's hard. I know it's hard for me, but we have to keep our loved ones alive. We know that they are at extreme risk to die if they contract COVID, which is why we have to focus our vaccination efforts on them, but also those of us who will be interacting with them to keep them safe.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. During the rest of our time together, we will look at COVID-19, how it spreads, and how it has affected us individually, our families, and our community as a whole. We'll hear from civic and faith leaders, medical professionals, and scientists who all share their personal experiences with the coronavirus and the vaccines that are intended to help us and our families fight back. Along the way, we'll get a no-nonsense dose of information from people who we trust and who really know what they're talking about. So relax and listen as our very special guest, Mr. B.B. Winans, shares some of his soul-stirring music and helps us tell it like it is.
Hi, I'm B.B. Winans, and I am honored to join the many trusted voices taking part of this critical, insightful program today to tell it like it is, supported by CareFirst. COVID-19 has ravaged the Black community in Baltimore and worldwide, and it is time we had a frank and candid talk about not only how it is affecting us, but what we can do to prevent the spread and how we can eliminate it once and for all. In times like these, many of us turn to our faith and sometimes to science, which is okay, for all the answers we need. So in addition to the many familiar faces you're seeing are some other folks, Black doctors and scientists, who have spent their careers working to preserve and enhance our lives, I hope you will take heed to their advice and we all look for a way out of this pandemic. For many of us, a major part of our spiritual experience is music. It lifts our spirits and in times serve as a balm for our souls. I am delighted to share with you throughout today's program from some friends, dear friends of mine. I hope they provide some comfort for those who need it during these times and perhaps inspires all of us towards a brighter day. I have the faith that we will achieve just that. God bless you, Baltimore.
Jesus, forever the same. Jesus, omnipotent reigns. Jesus, let earth proclaim that all is forgiven in Jesus' name. Oh, Jesus, He's forever the same. Jesus, omnipotent reigns. Jesus, let earth proclaim that all is forgiven in Jesus' name. Here we go. In Jesus' name. Every stronghold is broken. In Jesus' name. The captive go free. In Jesus' name. All things are possible. Yes, it's possible in Jesus' name. Said in Jesus' name. Said the enemy is scattered. In Jesus' name. Yes, oppression must cease. In Jesus' name. Where two or three have gathered, God is with us. In Jesus' name. Call on Him. Call on Him. Oh, Jesus. He's forever the same. Jesus. Omnipotent reign. Jesus. Said let earth proclaim that all is forgiven in Jesus' name. Yes, it is. In Jesus' name. Oh, some will try to deceive you. In Jesus' name. Oh, disguising as sheep. In Jesus' name. No weapon formed against you, it just won't prosper. In Jesus' name. He's the hope of my salvation. I will trust and believe. Jesus' name. I knock, the door will open. All of my blessings are in Jesus' name. Say Jesus, He's forever the same. Jesus, omnipotent reign. Jesus, let earth proclaim that all is forgiven. In Jesus' name. Oh yeah, one more thing. All of you are welcome. In Jesus' name. The battle's already won. In Jesus' name. Yes, blind eyes still open. There's healing power. In Jesus' name. In Jesus' name. Forgetting those things behind me. Yes, I am pressing towards the thing that lie ahead. He's the prize of my high calling. Jesus' name.
As you can see by now, this is not your typical town hall meeting. No grandstanding, no cursing, and no finger pointing, but instead, straight talk from the hip and from the heart. Okay, we said straight talk, so let's dive right into it. First, let's find out what this virus really is and how people might get it. Then we'll learn about the vaccines everybody's talking about and that your sister said she ain't taking.
Well, the coronavirus they call a novel virus. And novel is just another word to say it's a new virus. And it's new because it hasn't existed before. And no one has any antibodies or any resistance to that. That's why this virus is so deadly. So the coronavirus is here, it's ever changing, and it is potentially deadly. It's transmitted from person to person, basically from them, the droplets in their mouth. So they could cough, they could sneeze, they can sing, but it goes from person to person to person to person. What happens is the fact that it depends on what virus it is, but we'll talk specifically about the coronavirus. A person gets the coronavirus and they can get what we call a flu-like symptoms. And those symptoms are going to be like coughing, sneezing, fever, not feeling well, body aches and pains, being what we call lethargic, just kind of being tired. They can get all those types of things, just as if they had the flu. And it could then present to be more than that. Become short of breath. They can get pneumonia because of it and having other complications. The key to coronavirus is that some people lose their sense of taste and smell. And then they can get worse and worse, and a person may succumb to it and may potentially die from it. Well, there's definitely hesitancy. African Americans have a right to be hesitant. We know that in the healthcare system that we've been treated horribly in the past. That's real. However, right now we're in 2021. Right now we're dealing with a pandemic, and we're dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic that is killing us, and it's affecting us in a terrible way. And so therefore, I have to say to everyone, I understand that you're concerned. I understand your resistance. I understand your hesitancy. But at this particular time, I have to say to you, we've got to save your lives.
The vaccine has been, for me, and I say both as a Black woman and a public health professional, an opportunity to reflect. It really has. This issue of the vaccine and hesitancy, I think the first thing that comes to mind, particularly when it relates to Black people, is, the questions out there. Why do Black people not want to get vaccinated? And for me, that question has been troubling, and I tried to figure out why, and finally came to the conclusion that it's like, why would they want to get vaccinated? I mean, given our history and our current circumstances and conditions, it is not illogical that a group of people will want to raise this question. When you think about the Tuskegee syphilis study, when you think about Henrietta Lacks and her now famous cells or infamous cells, when you think about the experimentation on Black women for gynecological studies, one would say there's some validity in being concerned. And you couple that with our contemporary medical system, which obviously produces for us health disparities, a system that has unconscious and conscious bias built into it, a system that does not necessarily work as well for Black people and other communities of color in terms of delivering healthcare. So the same system is now asking us to trust that this vaccine and all we're telling you is a good thing. And then you combine that with an administration who was very clear about Black lives not mattering, and demonstrated that at every opportunity. And then the last piece we have, you do have obviously pharmaceutical companies who are invested in this work. And of course, I believe they're doing good work and good studies, but that industry is not without its questions. So when you sum all those things up together in and of themselves, it should not be why are Black people hesitant. It's like, why not?
To put it in context, the head of the World Health Organization said that we're about to have a catastrophic moral failure as it relates to people of color. And he's talking about Black folk and darker hued folks of the world, that they are not gonna get the vaccine. They are the people that need it the most, the frontline workers aren't getting it. People are skipping lines. People that have the means in certain cities and states and counties are crossing borders to poorer, like example, Prince George's. You had people wealthier from other counties, Montgomery, coming into a majority Black county and jumping ahead of the line. So the county had to start restricting access. So you see those kinds of things. In terms of hospitalizations, we've seen documented, medical doctors who actually know what's happening to them as it's happening, documenting the last days of their life, getting inequitable treatment from doctors that should be their colleagues, bringing their racist framings and assumptions about, the need for a medication which is not based in any clinical or statistical significance, just through their bias. So we see these kinds of conversations over and over again. And even before that, we look at the rates of infection and people getting sick. So what we know is that allostatic load does all that stuff. The chronic stress of dealing with those inequities causes all those morbidities to accelerate.
In the beginning, when they were speaking of receiving it, my answer was, no, I'm not going to do it. Let everybody get it, other people get it first. Let's see how this is going to work out. But one of the things that I'm a firm believer in is whatever decision that you're really faced with life and you really don't know which way to go, research it. Do your research. You don't have to listen to the news. Do the research, find out things on your own, get the information, put the information in hand, but above all things, take it to God in prayer. And when the Holy Spirit revealed to you what to do, there's no hesitation.
Yeah, you have to side with your health, your family, person that you're exposed to, and person that you want to continue to see. We can get into all of the rationales, the excuses to some degree, the concerns, particularly of our people as color. We all know of the Tuskegee experiment. We know of Henrietta Lacks and how her cells were used and misused and how the family was never compensated rightly. And there's also a major concern that is not always talked about, and that's the future. People are concerned about if they get the shot, what's going to happen up the road.
I think we do have to acknowledge why it is that some of us may have pause in considering the vaccine. And, I will admit in transparency that initially I wasn't quite certain because things happened very quickly. And one of the things that I've learned to understand is what Operation Warp Speed meant. And it didn't mean that corners were cut or that things happened without the usual process, but it's just that there was a financial investment made up front that enabled all of these phases of studies that normally take years to happen in a very short time because so many people are dying. And so I think that for me, the other question was, are there people in those trials that look like me? So in addition to spending my Thanksgiving reading about Operation Warp Speed and about the vaccine science I shared with you, I also looked at the results of those clinical trials. And there were, in the Pfizer trial, about 3,000 Black individuals were included, all recruited from the United States. And then in the Moderna trial, 4,000 Black individuals recruited from the United States. And so it was about 10% in each trial. So these were very large trials. 30,000 in the Pfizer trial, 40,000 in the Moderna trial. So I felt comfortable that there were people in the trial who had received the vaccine that looked like me, and that The trials have been large and well done with standard practices.
I've had patients and I've had people say to me, Dr. Branch, I don't trust the healthcare system. So therefore, I don't want to take that vaccine, or I want to wait and wait to see what happens. The issue with that is that you don't trust the healthcare system to take the vaccine. Yet, as soon as you catch the virus, the first place you're going to come to is the healthcare system that you said that you didn't trust. And I don't really have no major treatment for the COVID-19 disease. So now I got to start to experiment, right? And I'm trying to save your life then. I'm telling you, before you catch it, it's important to get the vaccine.
My name is Bishop Sean Bell, the senior pastor here at Greater Paradise Christian Center, East Baltimore. I think like many, we had to come to the realization that COVID-19 existed and it was real. For many pastors, bishops, apostles, we all believed that we could name it and claim it and clap our hands and it would disappear. And it hit many of us like a storm that would not stop. The functionality that we once knew, that we were raised with, Tuesday night, choir rehearsals on Thursdays, children activities on Saturdays, and then several worship services on Sundays, all changed within a matter of days. We then heard of the Great Commission that we preached about. We were taught as children in Sunday school to come out of the four walls and make disciples of men, seeing lives transform outside of our four walls. And so this pandemic, this COVID-19 reminded us that Christ was not boxed in, but Christ was centered on the outside. 1st of April, we took on the initiative for food, getting food boxes. Not only did we do the food boxes, but we were also partnership with Pastor Matt Stevens and then so many other Baltimore Cares, other organizations where we, from the month of April all the way through July, early August, we were able to impact lives. Twice a week, Wednesdays with food and Saturdays with food drives, but then hot meals every day for 3 months. In the midst of feeding, I understood there was a principle, okay, we put food on the table, but there's a greater problem that is at stake. Not receiving just some food, but we need people to get tested for this virus called COVID-19. So through many partnerships that I was able to negotiate outside of the city of Baltimore, where we were able to then make this one of the few testing sites at religious institutions. And so on October the 15th, we had our ribbon cutting here, that we became a COVID testing site, and currently that COVID testing 19 site is still operating Tuesdays through Saturdays here at 2900 East Oliver Street, Greater Paradise Church. And I'm proud to say, because this to me was evangelism. You're not able to be in the four walls, but when you drive on the property, the Bible says, I gotta get a little preacher here, the Bible says that Jesus was on the cross. And on that day, there was a thief on the other side. One thief was on the other side and said, I know I'm guilty, but there was one. Jesus looked at him and said, today, the man said, well, remember me when you come in your kingdom. And Jesus said, today you'll be with me in paradise. Well, for me, when they drive on the property, they're on the grounds of paradise. And so we're meeting the needs spiritually. When persons come and get tested for COVID-19, it is our prayer that when they drive up on this lot, that they see the light of Jesus Christ, that they don't have to worry about a hospital, they don't have to worry about any other organization. For many individuals, they were questioning, should we get this vaccine? I have colleagues that pastor in Africa and other places, and I made up in my mind, because we're on the front line serving so many persons. At least over 3,000 to 4,000 persons have been tested here at our church for COVID-19 to go through the process. And my wife and I prayed about it. And I told her that we need to take a stand. And we need to pray like anything. When I take the flu shot and when I take other shots, I pray before I take my shot. And I'm proud to say that I got my card. And I want to challenge everyone. I've already had my second shot, my second vaccine. I want to encourage our people to make sure you study, you educate yourself, but most of all, we've got to be healthy, because our community the African American community, the brown, especially Latinos. We are all being affected by this COVID-19 at an all-time high. And so I challenge you today. I challenge you by getting your card, making sure that your name is on that card, that you can help us get rid or oppress this virus that has taken out so many individuals. And for that, I made up in my mind as I challenge my seniors in my church and those who have the opportunity to get that vaccine, go ahead, because it's going to take all of us to work this effort if we all want to gather. One of the hardest things for me was to do funerals, and only 20 persons can come to a funeral. To do graveside services when there were so many great icons, men and women who deserved a proper homegoing. But now that we've been afforded the opportunity by God's grace to receive this vaccine, we're able to then come together, prayerfully by Thanksgiving and Christmas, to have some type of normalcy. Will it be the same? I don't believe it'll ever be the same. But I believe that God will give us the ability to be able to gather together again as one sound and one people.
Let's face it, we hear all kinds of stories about the vaccines for COVID-19, and some of them sound a little scary, and many of them are just fake news and nothing more. But here's our chance to hear the real deal on the vaccines. So let's listen.
So I'll talk specifically about the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine. Those are two vaccines that we call our messenger RNA vaccines. And what does messenger RNA mean? It basically means that it's a genetic material that we inject into the body. And that genetic material then causes our cells to create a protein that looks like the outer shell of the virus. So it's basically making a protein that looks like the face of the virus. And when our body sees that face, we automatically say, stranger danger, and our body then kills that cell. So when we have the messenger RNA vaccine, it does not change our DNA by any way, shape, no way, shape, or form. It does that. What it basically does, it basically shows us that picture of the face of the DNA of the virus, right? And then we know that we need to kill that virus, and that's the importance of getting the vaccine.
Part of the reason that the vaccine could be produced as quickly as it was is that that technology can be utilized to develop vaccines fairly quickly. Wherein if other vaccines we get, like the flu vaccine, for example, is in another type of vector, and that can take a little longer. I must admit, when I first heard about it, all of us may think when things are new, we're like, I'm not sure about that. And so I spent my Thanksgiving reading and getting answers to my own questions before I could educate my family and the rest of the community. And I have to say, when I actually read about how this technology works, I actually thought it was brilliant. And a part of me appreciated the fact that I was not getting injected with a coronavirus, but just, a piece of mRNA that would help me make that protein.
Here is that tension between my experience of being a Black person and that knowledge and history, and then the role and knowledge as a public health professional. So I'll be very frank saying to family, friends, and all members, get vaccinated. I mean, that really is the message when we have these discussions. My general message to the public is get vaccinated. My qualifying caveat is, if you have concerns or questions, ask those questions. You have every right, perfectly reasonable, to get the information you need to feel comfortable and confident in making a decision to get vaccinated. But at the end of the day, for the majority of the population, it really is, get vaccinated. And I have to say, that's a challenging position because I'm somebody who qualifies everything. But frankly, in this moment of COVID, how devastating it is globally, nationally, locally, and particularly for Black communities, we are disproportionately impacted. The very enormity of COVID itself begs for us at this moment to suspend, if we can, our distrust of the system, our lack of comfort with some of it, trust the leaders in the health system, along with our local leaders who are all delivering the same message, which is get vaccinated. Of course, it's if you can, because supply and demand remain an issue.
One of the things I do want to say, and this is very important, is because people have been asking the question about the variants of what's happening. We have different variants, so therefore people are asking, will the vaccine help with the variant? I talked to you about the messenger RNA, right? It's the same exact thing. The messenger RNA is in the vaccine, it's working. And what it actually shows us is it shows us the face of the virus. So a variant will put on some glasses. And then our bodies say, I know that's still you. I can tell even though you put them glasses on. So our bodies will kill that variant. Another variant may put on a mustache, and our bodies will say, I still know that's you. Another variant will put on a hat, and our bodies will say, I can tell that's COVID-19. But then there's going to ultimately become a variant that's going to put on a hat, glasses, and the mustache. And our bodies are not going to be able to recognize that. So that's what we have to take the vaccine for. We got to hurry up and vaccinate everyone so that we don't get a variant that's going to disguise itself enough that our bodies won't recognize it. And that's the importance of getting the vaccine sooner rather than later. Well, one of the things that we know that for different jurisdictions, you can sign up on different lists. I recommend sign up on all the different lists because each jurisdiction is at a different tier. Somebody may be giving out 1A, somebody may be giving out 1B, somebody may be giving out 1C, and I'm not too sure where a person is going to end up. So I say go to different locations, and when they call you, the first one that calls you, go there. Take the first vaccine that you can get. There's really no difference between the Moderna vaccine and the Pfizer vaccine. Go ahead and take whichever one you can get.
Here at Timonium Fairgrounds, where I'm about to get my COVID vaccine. They have a massive operation here. This is certainly what you would consider a mega vaccine site. We're talking about probably in the neighborhood of 2,500 to 3,000 vaccines will be given today. And it's extremely organized.
Well, I got my shot several hours ago. No problems at all. No soreness, no pain, nothing. In fact, my mother got her shot, her first vaccine, last week, and same with her. No issues, none at all. And I would like to just encourage everybody to go out and get their vaccine, at least sign up for it. Everyone can sign up, even if we haven't reached your category yet, everybody can sign up, and then when it's your turn, you will be notified. Now, I've talked to a lot of people, and to be quite frank, I'm a little perplexed, you know? It's like, why don't you want to get a vaccine when so many people have died? And I'm here to tell you, many who have not died are suffering some long-term health effects because of the coronavirus. I'm ready to take my chances with the vaccine.
Even as the vaccines roll out, wearing a mask, keeping our distance, avoiding gatherings, and washing our hands are some of the most important things that we can do to stay safe, Baltimore. We're delighted to join with Bank of America and Black Makers to provide cloth masks to the residents of Baltimore. We must address the pandemic, but we also must address inequity.
I'm Aaron Jones, and we're in Bushlers in Baltimore. This is my tailor shop. I've been here for about 5 years. I'm the master tailor, I'm the accountant, I'm the therapist, I'm the janitor, all the above. My lovely fiance makes sure that people get in the door, and I make sure they leave happy. When the pandemic initially started, we pretty much went from having 18 to 30 clients down to completely not having any at all. It started at the peak of our season. Our best time of the year for us is summertime weddings, Preakness, proms. And typically, naturally, during the winter, things will slow down. Obviously, right now, it's hard to forecast what that might look like during a global pandemic. But we're being creative and positive as possible. So my fiance and I pretty much teamed up and we started making masks. So we gave a lot of them away, just kind of be helpful, just try to supply the demand as much as possible. And then obviously we had to stay afloat, so we sold a few as well. We really wasn't trying to make a mint, we're just gonna make sure we can keep our doors open. Realistically, we didn't think we'd still be in this space, but we're back at square one again. I think this has taught us a lot. I think this is a blessing that we're supported by the NAACP and Bank of America for help funding this project as well. give us an opportunity to not only just help others, but also help us stay afloat. It's been a long time coming, but we're staying really positive.
Baltimore, we must mask up. We must work together. We must stay strong. Join us at the Baltimore NAACP as we march towards advancement of our people and for justice. You can join at naacpbaltimore.org.
He promised me he will deliver, deliver, deliver. He promised me he will deliver, deliver, deliver. And I believe he's a provider, provider, provider. Yes, I believe he's a provider, provider, provider. No other name I know that can deliver. In troubled times, he shows he can deliver. Whatever the need, I go to my provider. And if cash gets low, I just believe. He promised me, y'all. He's a healer, healer, healer. He promised me, y'all. He's a healer, healer, healer. And I believe he's a protector, protector, protector. Yes, I believe he's a protector, protector, protector. So lay sickness at his feet, 'cause he's a healer. Diseases can't compete, 'cause he's a healer. No, they can't. Walking down dangerous streets, he's my protector. And if trouble comes, I just believe. 'Cause he promised me that whatever, he promised me that and I believe for yes, I believe. He promised me. He promised me. He promised me. He promised me. And I believe. Yes, I believe. He promised.
It's just amazing how people are coping through all the pain and the grief. The stress of everyday life was hard enough before the pandemic. But between wearing masks, washing hands, Zooming, staying inside all the time, well, you know the drill. But there's help if you just reach out for it. You don't have to suffer alone. And now, getting vaccinated is even easier, as you'll hear from our good friend, Reverend Lee Michaels. Let's learn more.
Lee Michaels here, along with many trusted friends and leaders in the community, to share our utmost concern about a pandemic that has been a problem for our community, particularly harder than many communities, and that is COVID-19. All of us have had to deal with the reality of COVID-19, but I'm here to tell it like it is. We have to make sure that we put forth the concerted effort to not only heighten awareness, but the importance of getting vaccinated. I'm waiting for my shots right now, but there are many who have already had their shots. And yet in the midst of that, there are many who are reluctant for a variety of reasons to embrace getting the shot. Listen, there's one thing we do know, and that is without question, that this pandemic, COVID-19, can be fatal if you do not take the necessary precautions to protect yourself. 3 vaccines at our disposal, and yet there are so many who are hesitant to embrace the vaccine. I just want to encourage you to make sure that you don't be in the number of those who are outside of the realm of protection. Get the vaccine. Matter of fact, I've just found out that there are many of our local churches who are now becoming vaccination sites. So you can check and find out maybe from your place of worship or around the city and make a connection to a place that could be more accessible to you.
There's an added stress. Our partners at the Black Mental Health Alliance will probably attest. I mean, you have to do multiple things, any of which is a full-time job. You got to be a caretaker for elderly, a daycare for the young. You have to become a teacher. And so the inadequacies of the school system, the inequities built in, despite how hard some of our teachers and administrators are working, just comes to the forefront. And we're simply not able to give the children the education they need. The structures are inadequate, how we're approaching it. And so when you add those stresses of trying to be a teacher, a daycare provider, a caregiver, and work from home while keeping your mental health, I want to acknowledge that this is one of the most challenging things to do. And we're all doing that in a moment of increasing complexity.
Some of what we've experienced, our referrals have tripled in terms of people trying to access mental health services. And we are seeing with young people the fear and social isolation that they've experienced. And because of the digital divide, I mean, we make the assumption that everybody can get online, everybody can Zoom. There are even resources that they don't have access to because they don't have access to systems that work. So, you know, it has been a moment for us. It really gives us the opportunity to teach and train in ways that we hadn't been before, because now we have a captive audience. But it also reminds us of the disconnect, because everybody can't get to us. And so, again, with the referrals going up the roof, we know that teenage suicide has increased. So really, you know, we find ourselves in an interesting moment. So between unemployment and the many other things that people are dealing with, we really do see that substance abuse has risen, intimate partner abuse is on the rise, and even some child abuse. And mainly because now I'm home with my partner, right? And then now my children are home who have normally been in school, and while they are relatively good, there are things that I didn't recognize that they needed during school time. So the good part is, though, we are starting to see parents say, oh my gosh, there may be some underlying condition here, which is why he can't keep still, or why she is not attentive. And so that has forced parents in some instances to try and seek some help.
The first 2 vaccines that came on the market were created by Pfizer and Moderna. They were vaccinations that needed to be provided in 2 doses, and they were considered to be what is called mRNA vaccines. This 3rd vaccine that is being made available is being produced by Johnson & Johnson. It is a 1-shot vaccine. In terms of the effectiveness and the ability of these vaccines to prevent severe COVID disease and prevent hospitalization and death, they are each effective in doing that. There is a concern that I've heard among people that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is not considered to be as effective as the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines. But when I review the science around these vaccinations, if you look at the reduction in hospitalization rate, the reduction in severe COVID disease, and the reduction in deaths, they are all as effective equally across that realm. And so what I would say to you is this: as we are rolling out and noticing that there are new vaccinations being made available for individuals, They are being made available right now, limited supply, but that supply is going to grow. My recommendation to you is to get all the information that you can, to hear personal testimonies from individuals like me who have gotten the vaccine, and to seriously and strongly consider getting the vaccine as soon as it's made available to you, so that we can quickly get to the point where we can resume a normal life, where we can gather again with friends and family. One of the things I do want to point out for anyone who receives a vaccination at this point is that because we have not reached the point of herd immunity in this country, even after you get the vaccine, you still need to wear a mask. You still need to social distance and avoid gatherings indoors, and you still need to diligently wash your hands. This is extremely important until enough people are vaccinated that that person-to-person spread is curtailed. And so, again, I advise you to get the vaccination whenever it is made available to you, but don't shy away from asking people questions to make sure that you feel the most comfortable before you make that decision.
I would admonish everyone as a person of faith to get vaccinated when it is your time and turn, as soon as you can. I'm reminded of the words of the great thinker of the church, Anselm, who said that theology is faith seeking understanding. Faith seeking understanding, human understanding. And we so often think of science as the adversary of faith, but Anselm reminds us that science can be the reward of faith. Based upon our request and our research, prayers can be answered through scientific methodology. And so I want to encourage persons, even from my own testimony, I understand the history of things that could be concerning to us, particularly as people of color. And yet I personally talked to five medical professionals, 5 doctors who I know to be Christian and happen to be African American, one of whom is my personal and primary care physician, all admonishing me to be vaccinated. And so that was a part of what I believe to be God answering my prayers. Faith and science both operate from the realm of calculated risk. It is a calculated risk, mitigated risk, and statistical probabilities. And we live by faith. And so I would encourage everyone to see this vaccination imperative as an act of faith, of risk mitigation, and of community engagement, looking out for each other to make sure that we do all we can do to be the healthiest version of ourselves.
The pandemic has been so challenging for all of us. It's been challenging for us professionally. It's been challenging for institutions and organizations. It's been challenging personally. During this pandemic, I have lost 3 family members, a nephew, my oldest brother, and my sister-in-law. And I only got an opportunity to go to the graveside service for one of them. I could not even attend the services of my oldest brother. That's the first time that someone in our family has passed away where we felt that we did not give him an appropriate celebration of his life. I can't wait to see my family again. We all gather for Thanksgiving every single year in Alabama. 50 to 100 of us. We have a huge family feast. We enjoy each other. We hug. We tell stories. This past Thanksgiving was such a void. I can't wait to get back to that time, where we are hugging those that we care about. We are inviting into our homes our friends and family members and really enjoying what it means to be a family again. We can get there, but the vaccine is a sure path if we are going to realize some degree of life in terms of where we were February of 2020.
We've heard many voices today, voices of help, voices of hope, and voices of healing. You owe it to yourself, to your family, and to all of us. Now make the call or log on, make an appointment, and get vaccinated. Thank you, CareFirst, for making this possible and for bringing all of us together. We are better together. So together, let's beat COVID-19.
You don't know me. Probably never will.
But I need you to do something for me.
Something that could literally
change everything.
You'll never get a thank you card, and yet I need you to do it.
And if that weren't enough, I need you to do it as soon as you are able to.
If you do this for me,
I'll do it for you.
And for every single person you love.
Deal?
This is our shot to leave COVID behind.